Committee of the Whole, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Wednesday, February 16th, 2022. It is now 7:22 p.m. We're going to, Council Russell is on her iPhone, so she is present. It looks like we have everyone present with the exception, I don't see Councilor Chevlot any longer, so maybe he'll join back, maybe he won't. So we do have a quorum. Okay. And Kathy, can you read by title the matter before us?
Resolution number 1, 2022, resolution to adopt procedures for awarding community service grants from the Common Council of the City of Lawrence, Indiana.
Thank you. Okay, so I did sponsor this resolution, I believe. And really, what this resolution is about is putting some structure and creating a fair and transparent process for awarding grants in our city. So we have certainly had a history in the last few years of doing, awarding grants at usually in the month of December, really based on recommendations by the council as they've been approached by organizations within the community and identifying needs that they're passionate about, and therefore they brought them forward. And we have approved several in the past few years. But as this becomes something that we tend to be doing year over year, I thought it was really appropriate for us to step back and make sure that we create a committee. So that's one of the things that in this I would like to do is to create a committee. That committee would be the ones who create sort of the policy, the structure, the guidelines, the process for submitting for a grant. So end to end, when the grant period would be open, what the qualifications are, the deadline, how often we do it, once a year, twice a year, whatever. They would put all those policies and those that structure into this grant process. So let me pause there for a minute and just say that's sort of what my intent was, and why I think it's important that we do that. So let's just open it up for discussion. And Chris, maybe if you want to add anything that you think I might have missed that's important.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Just a couple of things. One is that want to make sure that we're all kind of level setting on expectations, because I anticipate helping putting together everything that you talked about, and certainly the existence of a grants committee and the what's the word I'm looking for? How this committee is composed is important, and getting some very basic parameters around what subjects you would be willing to give grants for, because that needs to be, I feel like that we have to have agreement on that. And I took this structure and this list from another city in Indiana, another city council ordinance, because I thought it was good, and I thought it also provided we'll get into more details on the grant criteria as we begin to develop materials, but the idea that the focus needs to be on programs that primarily serve Lawrence.
Hey, Chris, can you hold on one moment?
Sure.
Can the administrator please let Lauren, Councilor Russell in to the Zoom meeting? Okay.
Apparently she's dropping.
Yeah, I see that okay, let me just let her know that really quick.
Sure.
You can go right ahead, Chris.
And when you're driving and going from cell tower to cell tower, that happens sometimes. Wanted to make sure there was agreement on the focus, that it primarily serves the residents of Lawrence, that it will actually be successful and achievable goal, and that perhaps you're leveraging those dollars with other programs or other partners to bring the best bang for your buck to Lawrence. Those would be my very basic recommendations, but certainly the committee could drill down and get much more specific on that as well.
Yeah, so let me go over that too. I recommended, and I don't know what this other city did, but I recommended that via this resolution that we have 3 members from the council, 1 from the controller's office, and then 1 person from the community with experience or expertise in community services. So sort of a well-rounded committee, both pulling in majority council, but also pulling in some expertise and input from a community leader and the controller. So I think that's a sort of a good balance, and certainly would, as we go through the discussion of this, if anyone has any ideas or suggestions that, you know, are contrary to what's in this resolution, feel free to raise your hand and let's talk about it, because this is just in committee and we're just in discussion. This is not anything that we need to move on tonight, but we need to move on it soon.
Madam President, I had one suggestion to section 2, where it describes the type of grants to consider, which is pretty holistic. But I was wondering if we could add infrastructure or capital improvement type.
So for our budget, we already have a budget line for capital improvement. So what's in this grant committee would be things that are outside of that. So we already have a way to fund capital improvement, right? So this is the mechanism that, and this council will, in the budget process, will make a decision. You know, we'll make a decision about, do we want to spend 20% of our budget on grant awards and 80% on capital improvement, or vice versa, or any combination. So I think that's going to help too, because it's going to help put some structure around how much money are we going to award, and we're going to know that very early on in the year, and we're going to know that while we're in our budget conversations.
Great,
Yep.
thanks for that. What I did had a question regarding section 3, number C, partnership or leverage. Does that mean like a match? Is that kind of in plain language, layman's language?
So it's sort of like one of the programs that the resolutions that Councilor Denning had on the table. He withdrew it. It was like a partnership kind of arrangement. So it was like Lutheran Services and Laundry and More. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I believe it is. Is Chris, am I explaining that correctly when you refers to partnership?
I think, Maria, it certainly could be a match, but it also could be, hey, we're going to partner with this other organization and they're going to complement our work by doing XYZ, and that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Right, and I get the partnership. I was thinking more about the leverage. Does the leverage kind of equate closer to a match, or should we add a match, or maybe I'm just way off base here?
I think that's probably too in the weeds for the part that we're in now. I can envision, and again, I'm just talking off the top of my head, so please feel free to push back, but I kind of envision that level of detail would be in the grant application materials that we develop, maybe the scoring materials. Like I envision having like a matrix, and maybe you get additional points for the additional financial components, partnerships, funding, leverage, and we can work that out. I mean, honestly, I wasn't prepared tonight to kind of go too far into there, but I like where you're going with it.
Yeah, and maybe we, the committee might say, if we're going to give out 5 grants, I'm just making this up, if we're going to give 5 grants out in 2022, one of them is going to be a match requirement, and the 4 aren't going to be. Like, I think it's going to be pretty open to the committee as to how they want to, do that.
Great. Thank you very much for all that information.
You're welcome. It's
Madam
pretty high
President.
level. Go ahead, Councilor Russell.
I'm just sorry, I'm coming in on this late. So my question, just to get clarification on Councilor Rusamoroff, just because I came in the middle of her talking, is it what you're saying is through this process having, are you saying like if we grant them this money or bless them with this money, then what they would do for the city? Like how, is that what you're meaning?
Did you want me to answer that, or?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes, since you made the comment, go ahead and answer that, Councilor Zamora.
I was just probably way too much in the weeds and reading too much into it at this point. I was just talking about if it was considered for a match, or if a match was necessary, just as part of the scoring, really, what the counselor was speaking of. So that's all I was.
Right. And really all this resolution does is it gets us to the point where we can establish the committee, and then and tell sort of what the intent of the grant funds, like usage, the intent. And pretty much after that, the work's going to all be on the grant committee. So it's going to be a lot of work for whoever's going to be on the grant committee, and lots of opportunity for creativity and, thinking outside of the box, because this is a new one for us as far as the structure. Giving the grants is not new for us at all. We've been doing that. We've just been doing it in an ad hoc fashion. So.
And Madam President, I also just wanted to say, for the council's benefit, if we get down the road and the committee sees something in this authorizing resolution that they want to depart from, there's nothing to prohibit them from doing that. You just bring it to the whole council and explain what your thinking is, and then whatever the council, this is going to come back to the full council, the work
Absolutely.
product, so we get all the way through kind of the process, so it's all laid out. Whatever materials the grant committee comes up with, they'll go back to the council, and the grant committee will be tasked with explaining their thinking and the process and how they ended up where they did.
Yep, this is no different than any other committee in terms of how it functions. It will make a recommendation, but the council will have the final say.
Madam President, I'm just adding to that. I think, we've made a lot of comments around it, but I read that part, Maria, to mean, are we the sole funder, or are there other funders there and other partners, who also is involved with the community, the outreach? If we're doing $1, is somebody else doing 3? Is another organization doing 2? That sort of piece. Unless I'm off, is that how you would?
You know what? I think that's one of those opportunities that if we want to add that, or we want to clarify that, or we want to update that,
I think it's perfect.
There might be,
written, but.
Yeah. I think it's just making sure that we're all on the same page about what that means. And maybe it needs to be clarified a little bit because we already have a couple of different interpretations. So that tells me that it's not as clear as it could be. So Chris will help us with getting that language a little tighter.
Absolutely.
Council Whitfield, I think you had a comment.
I did. Thank you, Madam President. I am so for this because this is a community outreach engagement that we as a council are giving back to the communities that we serve. I did have a question in regards to hopefully the committee would define what a partnership is and leverage. And I think that is something that they should, as they're developing the structure, like you said, would be able to define what those terms are. But I think the overall resolution and the structure of the members of the committee is, I'm very excited about this. Very excited about this. I think this is something that we should do.
Great. Thank you. Any other counselors have comment or discussion?
I do have a question, Madam President. Is this a committee that you're going to assign? Do we volunteer for it? How is that going to get? How are we going to get on?
It'll be assigned by me like all the other committees. If there's any counselors that, are interested, please text me or email me. I haven't made any determination. I wanted us to go through this process first and everything to go through. And then, within short order, within a week or so, a week or two maybe, because we need to get we're going to have to nominate the member of the community like we do for other committee appointments. So we'll need to do that. So it'll be a couple weeks or so, 2 to 3 weeks or so, probably we get all of this hammered out. So if there's anyone that has a heart for this or just an interest, please just send me a text or an email and let me know. And I will certainly consider whoever is, interested. Okay, good question. Any other counselors? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to make a motion.
Second.
Okay, I just said I wasn't going to do that, and then I did it. So
Well, yeah, that was going to be my procedural question.
let me withdraw my motion. Okay, and this was great discussion. On March 7th, this will be on the agenda, and we will act on it at that time. So thank you all so much for your time and your input. Have a wonderful evening. The meeting is adjourned.
Good night, everybody.